With less than 3 months until the midterms, the battle for Congress is turning into an absolute, well, battle. Scripps News political director Andrew Rafferty is here to catch us up. All right, Andrew, the president's approval rating is historically low, but it doesn't appear, at least to me, that Democrats are converting disapprovers into votes the way they did in 2018. Now, that said, James Carville, our good Democratic strategist friend, predicted Trump will feel like he, quote, got punched in the mouth by Mike Tyson. Is this actually that good of an environment for Democrats, or is it a mirage?
Well, look, when you talk about the environment, there are a few things you got to look at. And you mentioned one of the big ones, and that's the president's approval. I was just looking at the New York Times polling averages. It has him about 37% approval, about 22 points underwater. Compare that back to 2018, which is, I think, the benchmark that we'll be going back to a lot. The midterms in his first year was only about 12 points underwater. So certainly a point for the Democrats there. Then you look at the congressional generic ballot, basically asking people, wait, in November, are you going to vote for the Democrat, the Republican? Democrats have an advantage, very similar to what they had in 2018 when they did well, picked up the House of Representatives. Economic factors, people are just down on the economy overall. That's more of sort of the trend lines going up. Are people going to feel more optimistic heading into November than they do right now? That's one thing that's kind of an X factor right now to watch for.
And now another wrench. Money makes strange bedfellows, as you know better than anybody in DC. But apparently Elon Musk and President Trump have made up, or at least made up to the tune that Elon is going to put 100 million, 120 million from his super PAC to help Republicans in the midterm. Could that make a difference?
Well, certainly make a difference. I think a lot of those Republicans will gladly take that financial support as long as Elon Musk himself kind of stays on the sidelines. He is still pretty politically toxic. If you're trying to turn out some of those moderate voters, they remember his days of Doge, of course, as you mentioned, the unceremonious parting between him and President Donald Trump. It's interesting, though, he put in a bunch of money in a judicial race in Wisconsin, about 25 million not too long ago. And the conservative candidate did not win. And we have seen on both sides, outside groups put in a lot of money in Michigan Senate race. There was a bunch of APAC money behind Haley Stevens, the Democratic Senate candidate there. And she ultimately didn't come out on top. So we are seeing some really interesting trends when it comes to outside spending has not always boosted specific candidates in the way that it has in the past.
Two more quick questions, and I'll let you run first. Redistricting, in my mind, could be the wild card. You have Texas, California, other states redrawing the map. So how much could redistricting alone decide who controls the House, separate from how voters actually feel about President Trump?
Yeah, this is huge. It goes into what we were just talking about with how many seats are realistically in play, because going back to the 2020 redistricting, which is normally once a decade when you do it, we had seen a solidifying of red and blue districts. And now looking at some of the worst case and best case scenarios, we see that, GOP is almost certainly going to pick up 2 or 3 extra seats based on just a redistricting alone. They could pick up a lot more. You mentioned some of those Texas seats. California, the Democrats tried to counteract this a little bit. It was not as successful as they had hoped. Virginia, not too far from where I am, tried to redraw their lines. A court struck them down. And so, there could be some surprises in terms of when you create these new districts, you have to get it from somewhere. You have to kind of split up these districts somehow. And it could make some potentially more competitive ones that we're not really seeing right now. But the worst case for Dems is they could lose up to 11 or so, and GOP could pick up double digits just based on the math alone. Not even the sentiment, not even, how people are feeling about Donald Trump, but just this idea that these districts, which were once potentially battlegrounds, are now firmly in GOP camp. They are coming out ahead when it comes to this redistricting.
And quickly, I'm keeping my eye open on Ohio Republican Max Miller. Says he's staying in the race despite the domestic abuse allegations from his ex-wife. How many House races could actually come down to individual candidates blowing up rather than the national mood?
Yeah, it has been a tough year for candidates across the political spectrum. You mentioned Max Miller, Eric Swalwell, remember, running for governor of
Mhm.
California, Tony Gonzalez, Graham Plattner, of course, in Maine. We've just had a lot of male politicians and candidates who have had to unceremoniously either exit the race or not seek reelection in their campaign bids because of some of these scandals. I think for the most part, we're talking about we're in August here. We hopefully are beyond any more bombshells like that dropping. If you think about how there was that political reckoning in really all industries of life, but certainly when it comes to Capitol Hill after the Me Too movement, we are not that far beyond what we saw behavior wise over the past 5 or 6 years. It seems like these things are still going on, and they are imperiling candidates from both the Republican and Democratic side.
Andrew Rafferty, he knows his stuff. We're going to be checking in with you a lot before November. Good to see you, and thanks for the time.
Thanks, John.